Hey guys, I'm sorry that I couldn't be in class today, so instead of having somebody try to explain it or for you guys to try and read it off the board, I decided I'd make a video so that way you knew exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So first of all, you do need to do your Math Excel bell work. If you haven't done that yet, you need to get on it. After you're done with your bell work, then somebody from each group needs to go and pick up a glue stick, a pair of scissors, and one of these papers. Oops. Okay, one of each paper that is over on the trapezoid table. So what you guys are going to do, you're going to take this paper. This is going to be where you paste all of your work. You need to cut out these pieces. So you're cutting out the graphs and you're cutting out the pieces for each rectangle. You'll be cutting those out. The first set of problems, these are in standard form. This set is in factored form, and then the last piece here, this is all the zeros. You're basically going to be matching up the polynomial in standard form with the same polynomial except factored, and then you're matching the factored form up with these zeros. After you have the zeros, you'll be matching that up with the graph, and you're going to be putting it all on this sheet. So for example, I would take my first standard form. You guys see that? Take my first standard form equation, and I will take that and I will paste it in the standard form box. Then I would take that equation, I would write that equation in factored form. This was on the video from last night, so if you didn't watch it, then you need to get on YouTube, get on Edmodo Google Classroom, find the link for it, and watch that video so you know how to change from a standard form equation into a factored form. Okay? So after you figure out what this equation is in factored form, you would find it in this section, cut it out, and put that in the second box. After you have factored form, you should be able to find the zeros. This is what's on the problem number 3 on the bell work for this week. So from here, I can tell what my zeros are. I take each of the binomials. I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. So I set x equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. And I just find my zeros that way. I solve for x. So for example, if I had x plus 5 is equal to 0, I subtract 5 on both sides, I get x is equal to negative 5. There should be at least 3 zeros for each problem. And you will be able to then look at the bottom here, and you'll be able to look at the zeros and find which one of these matches up with the factored form of the equation. So you'll cut that piece out and put it in the zeros box. And then finally, after you have the zeros, you'll be able to figure out which graph it matches with. So the graphs, remember your zeros, they cross the x-axis, or the line crosses the x-axis at those numbers. So for example, if I had 0, 4, and negative 5 as my zeros, I would go to the graph and I would find the graph, the line that crosses the x-axis at 0, 4, and negative 5. So just for an example, this first one, I can't really, let's look at this one. Okay, so like this one, I have a 0 at, it looks like negative 1, maybe a little bit past negative 1 here. I have a 0 at 0, and I have a 0 at, it looks like 2.5, or I'm sorry, not 2.5, this one. I have a 0 at negative, what's it at, negative 1. Okay, so I would look for those 3 zeros. That's not a great example because they weren't exact. Let's look at a different one. This one's probably better, this one. Okay, so this one, it's a lot easier to tell where my zeros are. I have a 0 at negative 5, a 0 at 0, and then another one at positive 3. So for those 3 zeros, I'd match the graph to the 3 zeros that I found that are on this graph. So 0, 5, and negative 3. I would find those zeros, and I would match that graph with those zeros. And the graph would go in the 4th column. So after you have this, like that column finished, you'd move on to the next one. So you'd find the next one that's in standard form, change it to factored form, paste, change it to find the zeros, paste that, find the graph, paste that. You're just doing that for each of the problems, and there are 8 problems. One more thing about this. You have some pieces, one space, one box from each column will say something that looks like this. the mystery equation or the mystery graph, depending on what section you're working on, that means that that answer is not on this sheet. You have to write it in. Okay? So for this one, the mystery zeros, there's going to be an empty box. They're going to have at least one box per column. So there'll be one box in the zeros column where you're going to have to actually write in the zeros that you find, because there's going to be one of them that's not on this list and you have to find it instead of just matching it. Okay? Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. You probably will not finish this today. Most people did not, and that's fine. We will work more on this tomorrow, but you do need to be working the entire period. I expect you to have at least some of this, at least half filled out. So that means pasting. Do not cut out all of the pieces, because if you do, you're going to end up with a giant mess at the end, because you're not going to be able to finish it today, so then you're going to have a whole bunch of pieces all over the place. Do something like this. What these people did, they cut them out one at a time, so that way they didn't have all these little pieces all over the place. This is ready for them tomorrow. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of what it looks like after you've, done some, this is from another class. So they've pasted the standard form equation. They took that equation, they changed it to factored form, they did that, pasted it. They found the zeros from factored form, cut it out, pasted it. They found the graph that matched it, cut it out, pasted it. Okay? So this is what you will end up with at the end, what you should end up with, a good example of it. Okay? All your work needs to be on a separate sheet of paper, and that should be turned in with your other papers. So once you are at the end of the period, it's almost over, you need to take all of your extra pieces, so like these extra pieces, stack it on top of your packet, and you are going to set it inside this folder, which will be in the front of the room. Okay? So you're going to just set it right here in the folder, and that'll be it. Okay? And close. The next person, the next group, do the same thing. Stack your papers, put it on top of this one. Okay? You'll just keep stacking them. All of 7th periods will be stacked in this folder. All right? And that's it. All right, good luck, guys. Please be good for the sub.